My wife, with whom I'd shared 9 years, engaged in infidelity during her recent vacation. She participated in 2 separate meetings where it was her and 2 different men. For the past few years, my wife and her best friend have been going on vacation together. I didn't mind this as they have a friendship that has lasted over 16 years, and her best friend is married to one of my close friends. A week after her return, everything seemed the same. Her behavior hadn't changed, nor was there anything out of the ordinary. I had never been prone to jealousy or controlling, and had never invaded her privacy. One evening after work, I arrived home. I couldn't help but notice that she swiftly stashed her phone away in her pocket. It struck me as somewhat unusual, but I didn't dwell on it at the time. One morning as I was getting ready for the office, I received a text message from the husband of my wife's closest friend. His message asked, "Can we talk?" I replied, "Sure." He then indicated that he would contact me later in the day. During my work hours, I received another text from him, asking if we could talk. I agreed and suggested he simply give me a call. Within moments, my phone rang, and the shocking news. My wife had been unfaithful during her recent vacation. My heart sank upon hearing those words. I inquired, "How did you come to know about my wife's infidelity?" He explained that his wife had shared this information with him, and he informed me that his wife would reach out to me as soon as I got home. Later that evening, while I was having dinner, my phone rang. I answered the call, and it was her best friend on the line. After a brief conversation, she dropped a bombshell. Not only had my wife cheated on me during her vacation with 4 men, but she also mentioned that my wife had been with others as well. It was almost incomprehensible to me. Her vacation had lasted only 7 days, and I felt like I was in a surreal haze, struggling to accept what I was being told. Amid the shock, I couldn't help but ask her why she was revealing this to me. Her answer was blunt. She explained that she had witnessed how easily my wife had betrayed me and confessed that she could no longer keep silent. In addition, my wife convinced her not to say anything, but she admitted to me that she realized she didn't want to deal with her. I thanked her for her frankness and asked that our conversation remain confidential. After talking to my wife's friend, I decided to hold off on the confrontation. I needed time to digest the information she had shared with me. The next day, I decided to contact a lawyer. I did not directly discuss cheating with my wife while she was on vacation. Instead, I contacted a Pennsylvania attorney and asked directly what steps and nuances are involved in filing for divorce in the event of a cheating spouse. The attorney informed me that I could initiate divorce proceedings based on the grounds of betrayal, and I possessed the information they provided in written form through text messages. Following this, I inquired about the cost associated with filing for divorce. He indicated that the total cost for the divorce would be $1,600, and he clarified that he would only charge a fee if he handled the divorce filing. I agreed to his terms. Several days later, I met with the lawyer, provided the necessary funds, and authorized him to proceed with the divorce filing. Suddenly, he inquires about my wife's stance on the divorce. I meet his gaze and reply that she is unaware of my intentions to file for divorce. He says, "Okay." After a week passes, I reach out to the lawyer once more. He provides a detailed explanation of the divorce filing process and outlines what to expect. Additionally, my lawyer assures me that he will inform me when the divorce papers have been served. 2 weeks later, I received a call from my attorney informing me that my wife had been served with divorce papers. It is important to note that she was still living at home, completely unaware of what was going on. I was at work that day when my wife suddenly showed up with divorce papers and asked what was going on. I bluntly told her that I found out about her infidelity while she was on vacation. She was shocked. She turned to me and asked if we could discuss it. I replied firmly, "No, I don't want to. I have no desire to save our marriage. Your actions speak for themselves. You've slept with 4 different men, but we can discuss the division of our assets." She agreed and left my office. That same day, upon returning home, I noticed that most of her belongings had already been taken. I'm in the dark about her whereabouts, as she didn't provide any information, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Around 9 p.m. that evening, I heard the sound of keys jingling at the front door. It was my wife. She entered and mentioned, "I just came to retrieve some more of my belongings." She further informed me that she was staying with her sister. I asked, "Did you explain to your sister the reason why you wanted to stay with her?" She replied, "I just told her that I needed to stay with her." I responded with an okay. However, her statement left me feeling a bit uneasy. Consequently, I retreated to my home office, closed the door, and spent some time on my computer. Shortly thereafter, she left. The following day, I headed to work as usual. While sitting in my office, I was surprised when the police arrived. I asked, "What can I do for you, officers?" They informed me that they were there to arrest me on charges of assaulting my wife. I quickly responded, "Wait, I didn't harm anyone." They explained that my wife had made a call alleging that I had physically assaulted her and had apparently shown the officers some bruises as evidence. I vehemently denied the accusation, stating no, I didn't lay a hand on her. I informed them that she had returned to our house to get some of her things because she was staying with her sister. I also mentioned that she might be upset because I had filed for divorce after finding out about her infidelity while she was on vacation and had not informed her of the divorce filing beforehand. I was taken to the county jail and went through the processing procedures. On the same day, I had a court appearance before a judge who set my bail at $1,000. Fortunately, they released me later that same day on a signature bond. When I got home, the first thing I did was to call my supervisor and apologize for the incident. In response, my supervisor reassured me by saying, "Don't worry, the seat is still yours." He also told me that I had to fight for my reputation. He offered me some guidance, sharing a personal experience where he almost faced a similar situation. He advised me, "Whenever you engage in any interactions with your spouse, it's crucial to have a witness present. Even in the context of a divorce, it's important to be cautious, as there may be attempts to undermine your reputation. Prevent her from doing so. Stay ahead of the game," he emphasized. Grateful for the invaluable advice my boss had imparted, I expressed my gratitude. Following our conversation, I promptly contacted a locksmith to replace all the locks on every door. I couldn't escape the thought that after the unfolding events, she wouldn't be back. Now I would be alone. At that moment, my lawyer called to inform me about the upcoming divorce hearing, which was scheduled for the near future. I began to tell the attorney about the recent events. The lawyer was not surprised when I recounted an incident where my soon-to-be ex-wife falsely accused me of hitting her, resulting in my arrest. He said that such tactics in divorce proceedings are quite common. At the divorce hearing, to my astonishment, the judge denied my soon-to-be ex-wife's request for a temporary restraining order against me. Initially, I was in a state of disbelief, wondering if it might be some kind of maneuver orchestrated by her. He informed her that, given the circumstances she had created, the request for a temporary restraining order could not be granted. Furthermore, he cautioned her, hinting that any future false allegations like the one she had made could result in her own arrest. During the hearing, my wife inquired about a living room set with the judge. I promptly informed the judge that she could have it, as I had no desire to keep it. I informed the judge that I didn't require legal representation for this matter. Subsequently, the judge approved the divorce based on the grounds of my wife's infidelity. The testimony of my wife's best friend, who had first-hand knowledge and had been confided in by my ex-wife, played a crucial role in supporting my case. Although my ex-wife's false accusations to the police were hurtful, in the end I was able to get out of the marriage with only the loss of some of my furniture, and I am relieved that I don't have to pay spousal support. Now the next story. I'm a 26-year-old male, and my girlfriend, whom I'll refer to as Jessie, is also 26 years old. We've been in a relationship for approximately 3 years. Our journey together began during our pursuit of master's degrees. I once harbored a crush on her, and it was during a game of truth or dare that we unexpectedly shared a passionate kiss. To my surprise, I discovered that she had feelings for me as well, which left me stunned, considering she was the most captivating woman I had ever met. We started spending a lot of time together, and to my surprise, she was the one who finally asked me out. Our time together was filled with joy. She really seemed like the perfect partner for me, and I couldn't imagine loving anyone more than her. I am of Indian descent and was residing in London. while she came from a mixed Indian and British background. Surprisingly, despite my family's somewhat conservative values, my parents grew fond of her, and our friends often playfully encouraged us to consider marriage after completing our master's degrees. Both of us landed fantastic jobs. I excelled during my master's program to the extent that my starting salary reached six figures. Having such a fulfilling career, an incredible girlfriend like Jessie, and a wonderful group of friends made me feel incredibly fortunate. In fact, I had even begun planning to propose to Jessie. The only person in the know about my plan was my mom, who was eager to assist in making the proposal the most memorable moment. However, this is where the story takes a turn for the worse, as things started to unravel in a major way. My closest friend, whom we'll refer to as Glenn, and I have shared a profound bond for nearly 8 years. I genuinely regard him as my brother. At the time, he was in a relationship with a girl we'll call Karen. They had maintained a relationship for 4 years, having initially met during their college years. Interestingly, all four of us, myself, Jessie, Glenn, and Karen, attended the same college for our undergraduate and master's degrees. One day, Jessie and I were relaxing in the park when Karen called me and said she needed something from my house. Since Jessie and I were living together by then, I went to our house, where I found Karen waiting for me outside. I handed her the keys, and at that moment my mother called me and informed me that my father had had a stroke and needed immediate help. With a heavy heart, I had to leave. I was halfway across Europe when I managed to send Jessie a message about the situation, and I rushed to the train station with my bag in hand. I arrived in time, and thanks to divine intervention, my dad was in stable condition. However, I was deeply surprised by the absence of any response from Jessie. My attempts to reach her through calls went unanswered, leaving me increasingly concerned. A few days later, I came home with a bouquet of flowers. I entered the house and, to my horror, heard someone moaning from the bedroom. I stood still for what seemed like an eternity, unable to understand what was happening. It got to me what was going on. Walking up to the room, I opened the door, and I see my best friend, who I had been friends with for 8 years, getting intimate with my girlfriend. I was in a daze. As soon as they saw me, they both froze in shock. The bouquet of flowers I brought slipped from my trembling hand as I tried to contain my emotions. Without saying a word, I jumped out of the house and jumped into a cab, telling the driver to leave, desperate to escape from this scene I had just witnessed. I was still grappling with the events that had unfolded, and although I usually prided myself on inner strength, tears welled up in my eyes. The cab driver, an elderly man, looked taken aback by my unexpected outpouring of emotion. He stopped the car and, oddly enough, offered me comfort. He just patted my shoulder and back. Later, I head to the pub, even though I don't drink. Not knowing what to do, I dialed the number of my old high school friend. She came to my rescue and took me to her house. She was married to a close friend of mine. I opened up to them and thanked them from the bottom of my heart for their kindness and support. They generously allowed me to stay with them during this whole ordeal. What surprised me was the lack of calls from Jessie and Glenn. To be honest, I wouldn't have answered the phone if either of them had tried to call. It simply added to my despair, realizing that I had a terrible girlfriend and best friend who didn't even have the basic courtesy to reach out after the mess they had created. I fell asleep, determined to cut them out of my life. However, when I woke up at 3 in the morning, I found about 100 messages from Jessie and Glenn, not to mention a barrage of calls from Jessie. I decided to ignore them. I silenced my phone before going to bed and later woke up at 9 in the morning. I promptly reached out to my boss and explained the situation, requesting a day off. My boss proved to be incredibly understanding and supportive. Not only did he grant me a whole week off, but he also extended an invitation to his home for future discussions if I ever required them. I thanked him. I am now staying at my friend's house, and she took the day off to comfort and support me during this time. Eventually, I told her of my intention to propose to Jessie. However, I broke down again, and she gave me a comforting hug. She gave me wise advice that, although it wasn't easy, I shouldn't let my emotions take over because I needed to be strong for my own well-being. She went a step further and suggested that I could take a brief mini vacation, assuring me that she and her husband were more than willing to host me for as long as necessary. However, her phone rang, and she informed me that she had to leave immediately due to an unexpected work emergency. Karen called me today, and we made an appointment to meet in the morning. I hope she is doing well, despite the problems she is facing. Update. Following my meeting with Karen and the subsequent events, I find myself in a state of confusion about what to believe. It's a bit of a lengthy story, but please bear with me. Around 9 a.m., Karen arrived at my friend's house. She had obviously been crying a lot, and her complexion was very pale. I embraced her comfortingly, and we sat down to breakfast. She was silent during the meal, not saying a word. I could sense that she was waiting for a private moment to speak. Once my friend and her husband had left for work, Karen and I found ourselves alone. We took a seat on the couch, and I gently placed a hand on her shoulder, asking her how she was holding up. With teary eyes, she turned to me and suddenly burst into tears, embracing me tightly. It seemed like she was also carrying a burden of hurt and needed to release her emotions. Amidst sobs, she began murmuring apologies and blaming herself. I thought that maybe she felt responsible for not being there for Glenn and felt guilty for what had happened to me. I assured her that it wasn't her fault and that the blame for our suffering was entirely on their shoulders. After we finished hugging, she simply clasped my hand and expressed her need to share something with me. In that moment, I felt a sense of unease, wondering what she was about to reveal in such a circumstance. Here begins the part where I don't know what to believe. She began her confession with the following words. She revealed that she had been involved in an affair with an ex-partner she had encountered at her workplace. This affair had been ongoing for several months. On the day she had requested my house keys, her intention was to meet with her ex at my place. As it turns out, after I departed with my belongings, she and her ex engaged in intimate activities at my house, leaving me utterly stunned. To add to the drama, it emerged that Jesse had returned to our house during this time and caught Karen in a compromising situation with her ex in Jesse's own room. At that moment, I wondered if my house had become an intimate meeting place. I was silent for a moment, and then I wondered if Glenn had cheated on her too. So, why do you feel responsible for me being cheated on? Now, this is where things get a bit unclear, and I'm not sure whether to fully believe it. Karen's ex had his back turned to the door, and when Jesse walked into the room, she mistook him for me, assuming that Karen and I were being intimate. I couldn't help myself and burst into laughter. It really did sound like a fairy tale. Come on, tell me the true story, I asked. In response, she pulled out her phone and started showing me individual conversations between her ex, Jesse, and Glenn. The conversations mostly consisted of Jesse hurling insults at Karen, accusing me of infidelity, claiming that I had heartlessly used my father's stroke as an excuse to cheat. What struck me was that Karen didn't try to explain that I wasn't the one involved. As it unfolded, Jesse and Glenn had been swayed by a few of our shared friends to engage in a revenge affair against both Karen and me. Initially, they had denied it, feeling uneasy about the idea. However, after persistent prodding, they eventually succumbed to the plan on the very day I returned from the hospital where my father was receiving treatment. She went on to elaborate that she had been summoned to my house after I had departed. By that time, both Jesse and Glenn were left astounded by my actions, which included the flowers, tickets, and bills. They reached out to my mom to verify whether I had actually visited them, and my mom confirmed it. It was at this point that Karen revealed the truth, confessing that she had been intimate with her ex and not me, and that I had remained faithful to Jesse. It was at that moment that it hit Glenn and Jesse. Glenn reacted in an unexpected way. He slapped Karen. Jesse, on the other hand, simply burst into tears. As it turns out, since that revelation, they have been attempting to contact me, recognizing that they were the ones who ultimately shattered my trust. When Karen finished speaking, my first impulse was to scream at her to get out of the house, but I was so emotionally exhausted that I cried instead and then laughed hysterically. I looked at her and asked just one question. "Are you telling the truth now?" I asked. In response, Karen swore on her father's grave that she was indeed telling the truth and began to apologize for hurting me. I was silent for a while, pondering the situation. Finally, I asked her for her phone and took screenshots of the messages, sending them to myself. I told her to leave my house and never try to contact me again. She begged, assuring me that she didn't want it to go down like this. I boiled over and shouted, "Yes, you did it. You deliberately cheated on your boyfriend and wanted to ruin my relationship because yours is ruined. Do you really think things are going to be the same after this? Do you even think you'll stay the same?" Enraged, I unleashed a barrage of harsh words at her. Then she left, but not immediately, saying that I had always been the perfect guy for any woman and that she was sorry for what she had done. I responded by saying that her remorse and apologies could not change the past. As she left, tears streamed down her face, and I, shocked, cried too. When I got home, my friend was stunned by my condition and began to comfort me. I told her everything. She warned me not to trust Karen, calling her a liar and a cheat. She suggested I read Jesse and Glenn's text messages, if only to assess the veracity of Karen's story. I was about to read the messages, but felt I needed some advice. So I wrote to my mom, outlining the entire situation and posting screenshots. Not knowing what to believe, I asked for her advice. I find it hard to fully believe Karen's story, and I am still confused. And I don't know what I should do if her story turns out to be true, and also if it isn't. Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you